Okay, I'm live. Looks like we have one person watching currently. Be my amazing wife, Paula Red here. Now we got two people watching. That's awesome. Well, thank you. Now we're back to one person watching. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. This right here. It's mirrored. Oh, that's annoying. I will get a better camera set up. I definitely intend to get a better camera set up. Now nobody's watching. Oh, it's only mirrored for me. That's good. Vala, how many people does it say is watching for you? Because it says 0 people for me. Oh, of course. Yeah, no, I'm just waiting until 1:30 and we will get going. You can all watch me drink water. Apparently that is a thing on YouTube, drinking water. I actually watched a video on the videos. It's very interesting. Okay, well, we'll get going. Thank you for joining live stream with Kyle T. Davis for my book launch, which launched earlier this week for A Protector's Beginning. I am so stoked. I've been working on this for a very long time and finally decided to self-publish. So I am so happy to be able to share it with everybody. So a few things for the stream. I am most definitely new to this. I've never streamed before. I've never made a YouTube video. So I'm going to stumble. It's going to be super awkward. I guarantee it. Yeah, so it might be bad. I'm going to tell some jokes. Well, they'll probably fall flat, but we'll try. Read a little bit from the book, maybe take some questions if anybody has anything, and we'll go from there. So it will be fun. Yeah. Hey, so, one of my favorite jokes is, why are fish so smart? They're just so smart because they're in schools all day. Yeah, I would tell that one to all my contractor buddies, and they would just look at me really funny. Yeah. So I used to, recently, I was a project manager and facilities manager for a company, and I'm currently unemployed right now for that, so it's just the book and my new business. Oh, hey, Shadow, stocky. But when I did that, I had weekly meetings, and I'd be the youngest person in the room typically, and I would have 20 to 30 contractors, carpenters and welders, electricians, the whole 9 yards. And I always did lame jokes. It was great. At first, it was super awkward for them because I don't really get awkward. I might seem awkward, but I don't really care too much. Vala can definitely attest to that. I don't get embarrassed very easily. And it just eventually became a thing. Like, they expected it. After a good 6 months, they're like, where's our lame joke, Kyle? Like, they were sad when I forgot. Or when I wasn't there, they actually were super sad when I forgot the lame jokes. Oh, no, I don't need a reason to do awkward jokes at all. So, not the least. But it's great. But yeah, so let's read a portion of the book. Actually, before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about the setup for the book and why I started to write it. So if anyone who just joined, we're going to talk about the book a little bit. I kind of talked about lame jokes a tiny bit. And I really kind of want to go over really quick the reason I started. Oh, I know, Shadow. I love awkward jokes. The reason I started writing this book was really due to Vala, my wife, who's amazing, by the way, and completely stunning and beautiful. Is I had always wanted to write, but I never really committed to it. I never really started doing anything with it. It was really hard for me to, I'd start a story, I'd stop. I never really was a writer. And at a time of our life, I was working a terrible job. Things were just kind of just stagnant, and I really wanted to start writing. And she gave me some of the best piece of advice I've ever gotten when it comes to writing. It was just start. Puke on paper. Throw down. Oh, I guess so. I just so used to reading Vala. Hey, Jeremiah. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so Carly gave me the best advice. It was just to start. Literally put down the first line. Just anything. Puke on paper. Just, even if it's terrible, and it should be terrible. And that's actually how I start every story. Every story I start like that. I write the most horrendous first sentence I can think of. Like, I will throw curse words in. I will just make it like the most stuttering trash possible. Just because I know that I can't get any worse than that. It has to get better from that one terrible line. So it works, actually. It really does work. You're like, wow, that's horrible that a human being would write that. Then you go from there. It's pretty good. So one of the main things around this book, The Protector's Beginning, is I wanted to explore the young adult archetype and really that superhero. I love that superhero archetype, that Captain America, Batman, Green Lantern, from kind of that setup. But I wanted to do it not with the typical 14-year-old skinny kid, which there's nothing wrong with those. I love those stories, who finds something and becomes a great fighter in, 5 days. I wanted to go from someone what if someone was already an expert in fighting? Like Jason Verse, he's already an expert in fighting. He starts a little older, he's 17, but he's been trained for nearly the last decade by his special forces uncle. And his uncle, who never had any kids, never was married, it's kind of a nut job. That's the only way he knows how to raise a child. So he trains him. He gives him military level training for near a decade. So when Jason starts, he already knows how to fight, shoot, do the whole 9 yards. And I really wanted to push that boundary of where can you take that? Where can you take that semi-realistic, just a little realistic, and how far can you push that character type? So that's really what I was going for with that. So let's get into it and let's read a little bit. So I'm going to be reading a scene from the middle of the book. This is one of my favorite scenes. So this is where Jason Verse, the main character, he's already found the ring. So the ring is what grants him power. And one of the key powers in this universe that I have created is the power to be able to jump between realms. So there's multiple realms. You could call them dimensions, but it's not quite dimensions. Is there any characters based on me? I don't know based on me. Maybe some that I would like to be. No, I'm not Jason. That's for sure. That's the one that I am not Jason. I would probably say that I identify the most with Jeb or Baden. So there are some shadow realms, actually. Yeah, not in this book, though. So, but yeah. So he has the ability to jump different realms. And there are multitude of realms, hundreds of them, thousands of them. And there are other races. There's other aliens. So they exist in these different realms. And this is the ring, which gives him the ability to have these powers and jump from the different stuff. Also grants him the duty to be the protector of his realm, which is the Earth realm. So this is where he is the first time trying to jump by himself and actually use that power and control it. So he gets into a little trouble and he has to deal with that. So I'm going to read it. I'm going to stumble, like terribly stumble. I'm going to repeat myself. I'm going to have to go back. And yeah, I mean, I don't mind public speaking, but trying to read out loud to a group of people is probably not my strong suit. So, but anyways, here we go. So he jumped into a realm called Kroll that you actually find out later after this. And he just finished a massive 1 mile swim through a sulfur ocean, not real sulfur, just sulfur tinted. He dropped in it as he jumped in. He's out. He's on this nasty rock pebbled beach. It's 100 degrees out. It's just scorching. and it's just terrible. So here we go. The sound of pebbles shifting brought Jason's attention to his right, and he froze. Standing like a statue, 30 feet away, was a creature akin to a giant wolf, covered in red and tan fur from head to tail. Huge saber-like teeth dominated its face. Its head and paws were disproportionately large for its bear-sized body, and large black claws dug into the ground. Its deep black eyes stared at him for a brief moment, too stunned to move. But soon the muscles under the thin fur flexed, and the back legs of the great wolf tensed, ready to spring. Jason darted to his feet, pulling his 9mm from its holster. The same moment the monster lunged. He tried to dodge the onrushing monster. Bullet after bullet cracked open the silent air, ripping flesh from the beast. Jason slipped in his feeble attempt to dodge, but a stroke of luck, the great wolf jumped at the same moment, flew over Jason. Jason shoved himself up to a kneeling stance, reloaded, and took aim as the monster pivoted. More bullets drove into the monster, bits of flesh exploding off with each impact. The slide of the gun stayed back with the final bullet, but the monster showed no sign of stopping. Jason dropped the clip and put in a fresh one, letting the slide move forward. I'm going to be eaten. I'm going to be freaking eaten, he thought to himself manically. I've been here for barely half an hour and I'm already dead. A desperate laugh escaped him. Well, at least I will go out with style. Before the monster could lunge again, Jason sprinted a dozen paces to a nearby boulder the size of a car. The monster sped after him, training pebbles in sand with its paws. With the wolf just a foot away, mouth open to rip off Jason's leg, he leapt, planting his foot on the rock and pushing up and over. The wolf couldn't turn in time and crashed into the rock, crumpling with an alien howl. As Jason twisted over the animal, his face contorted in a scream, and he fired madly. His bullets flew, and he fell into the back of the alien creature, larger and meaner than a mother black bear. Part of his mind observed how absolutely absurd this whole picture was. He landed hard on its back, forcing it down, and fired 2 last rounds, point blank into the right shoulder. It tried to buck, but just crumpled further as its injured shoulder gave out. Jason grabbed a handful of fur and skin just before the wolf slammed him against the rock. He saw stars as his head made contact with the rock and lost his grip on the pistol. The wolf moved to spin him over the other way, which would let him get on top of him. Jason quickly pulled out his knife and with all of his strength crashed the blade into the base of the creature's skull. A wild roar ripped from the beast as he twisted, knocking Jason off, the skin of his arm shredding as he landed. With little grace and much stumbling, Jason struggled to his feet. The large beast started to circle him. The air in Jason's lung burned and his vision blurred. He grasped his knife once again and waited for the charge, but it never came. Mere seconds later, the beast took its last step and crumpled to the ground. Jason quickly followed suit. Moments later, the light in the monster's eyes faded to nothing. The sand felt like hot coals as Jason tried to get the energy to get back up, trying not to cry from sheer relief and panic. And that is it. Hey, Casey. Hey, Adam. So that is a scene from, that would be, what chapter was that in? That was chapter 10 of the book. So Jason just fought a creature, which its name I have a hard time pronouncing, actually. I do have creature lore, Jeremiah. Not a ton in this first book, but there is some creature lore. I try to intertwine them all. So it kind of goes, this creature actually impacts kind of how he's seen later in the book and of his fight for it. It is available in the UK. Adam, if you go to Amazon.com, it is listed in expanded distribution, so it can be bought through the UK. So it would be A Protector's Beginning is what you'd be looking for. We can actually send you the link if you'd like. But yeah, so that is the reading for The Protector's Beginning. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. It was great. I do have more. We do have more to go over. So, and I want to first, before we go, we have something really serious. My favorite lame joke. This is by far my favorite lame joke of all time. So there's this apple, and it's in an oven, There's another apple next to it. And first apple looks at the second apple and says, "Man, it is hot in here." And that second apple looks back at that first apple and says, "Oh, wow, talking apple." I love that joke. I just completely love that joke. I tell it a lot. So, okay, so Jeremiah, what made me self-publish? Probably the timing. This book has actually been done for quite a while, and I was not going to self-publish, but a lot of things happened at once. So it definitely was a God thing. I definitely felt that the timing was right. So I was given notice at my job about 2.5 months ago that they were going to be letting me go. And from there, I was like, okay, what do I do next? So all of a sudden, stuff started to fall in place. I read some articles about self-publishing. I just kind of saw the trend of self-publishing taking off in right now because of COVID. Tons of people are reading. Ebook sales are just skyrocketing. Print book sales are skyrocketing. It's just a huge thing right now. So it's like, so I started looking at it more. At the same time, I was able to get some contracting work through my old company. They just called me out of the blue. Said, "Hey, do you want to do some contracting work?" So I opened a new business. I'm actually now the owner of Davis Facilities Consulting. And everything kind of dropped into place that is like, wow, this is a good time. Like I can do it. And it just one after another. Like I got a cover designed through an amazing lady on Twitter. Her name's Gloria. She recommended Melinda, who was just a random, "Here, check this person out." And Melinda helped me design this cover. And it is gorgeous. Just absolutely gorgeous. Went back and forth. She was amazing to work with. Incredibly good pricing. And I mean, I'm picky. For most of you who know me personally, you know that I can be somewhat anal about stuff like this. And so can Carly. So it was a blast working with her. I'd highly suggest her. So I can once I post this picture, I'll put a link to her website down in the comments. But yeah, so it is amazing. It has been definitely a ride. And great question, Jeremiah. So if anyone has any more questions, definitely open to some more questions. Because I always have more jokes. Because we can just do some really awkward, lame jokes. I mean, I do have no problem with that. So, how do you talk to a giant? A giant? You use big words. So what's next? I would say what's next is I actually will be releasing another story here shortly. It is a short story called The Sparta that will get released for 99 cents as an ebook only on Amazon in the next few weeks. And the other, how do I get signed copy? We just meet up at church and get a signed copy, Amanda, when COVID lets us get back all together. There will be a second book, Jeremiah, as long as I'm able to get this one off the ground slightly. And even if I'm not, I do intend to write it, but I'm currently finishing up another manuscript. So the short story is about a captain who actually has gone, it's a sci-fi short story set long ways in the future, and the Sparta is about a captain who's actually gone mentally insane, and it is really a character case study on what happens to a person who can't defeat the mental issue. Because you see a lot of stories that are about, a person has X issue and they're able to overcome it. I really want to explore what if they can't? What if you can't overcome it? How do you function? How does a person deal with that and still try to maintain their life? So it's really a character-driven study inside of a sci-fi story. I find sci-fi to be one of the best ways to explore that stuff because you're not bound by modern day norms. You're able to take it off a little farther and introduce things and use the environment to play off to be able to work with the character more. So that's really what I did. And that's really that driving force behind that story. So that will go out probably the next few weeks. And I actually have 2 more of those planned. So there's 2 more in the series for that. Then I'm also currently just editing. I just finished my first round of edits on a story called for my Frost and Kai series. And that is a story about a father whose daughter is kidnapped. Very classic archetype. But I threw a little twist in it, and the father, who is one of the best fighters in the world, he's been trained ridiculously. And I'm not going to ruin it because that's part of the storyline, is how he got there. He actually kidnaps the first female president of the United States, who was also an amazing fighter. She's ex-CIA, and it kind of goes to this witty banter chess match between them about how to get the upper hand, and then eventually her being convinced that there is this massive conspiracy that they need to fight. And then eventually they join forces, but they don't really lose that hate for each other. So there's kind of this witty banter explosion. So it's kind of a CIA thriller, mystery, conspiracy, modern action. So it is definitely fun. Do I have a fighter's background? No, not really. I mean, except if you call fighting with my old man. So not bad. We would just, I mean, he taught me how to, kind of street fight. So put the gloves on, put a boxing thing on. Every time I dropped my hands, it gave me a pop to the head. So it was a good way to learn really fast. So yes, actually, Amanda, we have actually thought about local shops. So now that I have the book up on Amazon, one of the things that I am looking into is expanded distribution sites. So I did not grant Amazon sole ownership of the rights. So I still retain those. So I'll be sending them off to like Ingram Sparks, which is another site. And that's more of a wholesaler. And that's actually where I'll be able to send my stuff and get it into bookstores. That's where Pals and Pals buys from. That's where a lot of the smaller book publishers buy from, because Ingram's allows me to sell at wholesaler pricing. So that would be something that I'm actually currently working on right now. So Jeremiah, you asked, as a Christian, how does that play into my stories? So I don't have any Christian fiction right now published, and I am working on a few of them. But really the big thing that plays into my stories as a Christian is really the morality, is that role model. Is I want to be able to represent, that you can have the sense of absolute morals in this day and age, and kind of always point it back to that, how do you put it? Back to that overarching, grace, that overarching absolute morality that God gives us. So does anyone else have any more questions? I expected the stream to go for about 20 minutes, and it has so far. If anyone has any more questions, I would love to answer them. If not, I do have a lame joke to leave you guys with. Okay, so lame joke time. This one. How am I so handsome? My amazing wife asks. I don't know. Video filters, things of that sort, that definitely helps. Can I marry you? Well, your husband might have a problem with that. The word count on this book currently for The Protector's Beginning sits at 85,000, give or take. So that's a very good length for a young adult novel. Young adult novels of this type, the sci-fi and fantasy, run anywhere between 65 and 90. So I'm on the upper end, but I'm still kind of within that window. Thank you. It's actually shorter. I actually am growing it back out. I had it really long for a while. So, yeah, so lame joke. So a contractor walks into a bar with a piece of asphalt over his shoulder, walks up to the barkeep, and he looks at the barkeep and says, "Hey, take a drink, and I'll take one for the road too." Okay, we have Casey asked, do you guys find a professional editor, or was it all you? For this one, it was all us. So professional editing at the time when I wrote this and finished it was a little bit out of our budget range. Most likely for my next novel that I'm working on, I will have a professional editor. So this one was all us. Actually, it was also you, Casey, because you beta read it and helped us get through that. So thank you for that. Jeremiah asked, what would the word count for a short story be? That really depends. It is very, if you look at different magazines, some have a limit of 5,000, some have a limit of 20,000. So typically once you hit to that 30 to 40,000 word count, you're going to be running into what would be considered a novella. And that's where it's kind of the break point. And it really does depend on the subject matter you're writing. A science fiction short story, you can have way more word length than you can a modern literary short story. I did actually have the Sparta professionally edited. I did hire someone for that. Jeremiah asks, how many stories do you make before publishing this book? Oh, I have written 7 or 8 full short stories, started a few books, but this was my first novel I ever finished. So from start to finish. So what would a pro editor give me? Just an extra set of eyes, someone with the experience who does it all day. You know, someone who's dedicated to this type of work. Carly is an amazing editor and wordsmith. I mean, I could not have done this without her. Like, no joke, this would not exist without her input and loveliness and completely awe-inspiring beauty. But yeah, a good editor is still worth its weight in gold. So most likely what I want to do for this next round of book is have an editor look at it. And it won't be a content editor. It'd be more of a copy editor. And then they would go through that and bring it back. And then at that point, Carly would read it. And she's the person who I trust the most when it comes to the content and the wordsmithing. Yes, you are a pro, Carly. And Vala is the best. Is this being recorded? Yes, it will go up. No, I'm not doing signed headshots, Casey, because that's creepy. Nobody needs to look at my headshot. If you guys want one, I'll text you a picture of a headshot. So, but that would be more creepy if Josh keeps it. So, yeah. Okay, if no one else has any questions, I think we are going to wrap it up. And I do want to say, I am going to be posting more videos on this channel. This channel is going to be about exploring kind of the art of storytelling from my experience, as well as my experience as a writer, and also just my random stories and kind of how stories develop and the inspiration for stories. So if you guys want to see more, please subscribe. I know that's a terrible pitch, but subscribe, because every follower counts, and I can hopefully grow this into something. I probably won't. I might do more streaming on this book if people want to see it, or I might create more videos on it. So this channel won't be dedicated just to the Protector, dedicated to all of my writing, but more about the art of storytelling and what storytelling is, some of the experiences I've learned, and a lot of how I see stories develop from nothing to something. And a lot of my random stories. I'll tell you a lot of stories that start with my old man, and those always end up usually painful with explosions or something being burnt, and guns, lots of guns. So Jeremiah asks, how much did you spend in the world building of this book? Oh, I couldn't even tell you. Hundreds of hours, hundreds. I have stacks of paper backlog that won't ever see the light of day just to be able to do world building. A good sci-fi fantasy book is like an iceberg. You guys are only seeing the tip of it. There's tons of stuff below it. How long did it take me to write this book? It took me 8 months to write the original manuscript, and embarrassingly about 3 to 4 years to edit it. But that was also several rewrites. I think I rewrote the book 3 different times, major, like dramatic rewrites, as well as having 2 more kids and going between 2 different jobs. So busy time. Is it a soft or hard magic system? It's more of a soft magic system. So it doesn't actually get a ton into it in the first book. And if you read it, you'll understand why. But yeah, so it's more of a soft, it's not a spell-based system at all. It's more of a will-based guidance system. So you'll see it if you read the book, you'll kind of get where I'm going with it. Oh, Josh is suggesting some way to publish your D&D campaigns. I've thought about that, actually. Problem is I steal a lot of stuff for those. So I'd have to figure out how to get rid of the copyrighted material. But I could do some of those. That'd be fun. Have I tried writing hard magic stories? Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I actually have a story that I've been working on called The Riven, and that has a very hard magic system. So that one will take more time. by far. So that one's not going to be ready anytime soon. Okay, it has been a pleasure. Thank you guys so much. If you have any more questions, you can always send them to me on Twitter, on Facebook. If you have my phone number, text them to me. I mean, you can put questions in the comments here. If I get enough of them, I'll make a video just about answering questions. I'm on Goodreads, the whole 9 yards. So I will post this video with all the links to my stuff, and we'll keep on going. Thank you, everybody, for joining. It has been a blast. I actually had a ton of fun. Like, I really didn't think it was going to be this much fun streaming. It was really cool. I might do it again. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody. I will talk and see you guys all later.